Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first, we just hit 3,070 subscribers to the YouTube channel. I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers, and special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially elite channel members: Brendon, Mikel, Scott, Todd, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tigers, Ryguy, Brendon Nelson's Haircut, Salacious Crumb, ItsHoof, the Reno, and TlVlO. So, big stuff happened earlier today. I already made one video where I broke the news, or, well, was among the people breaking the news. We did an hour-long stream during lunch so we could all talk about it, but now that I've had some time to think about this move, the decision to extend Tyler Lockett for 4 years and 69 mil plus, I want to go ahead and kind of make a video where I go over all the different angles that I'm coming at this trade from so I can come to a final conclusion on how I feel about this contract. And in order to do it, you have to cover a lot of different ground because this Lockett contract is kind of a big deal and it tells us a lot about what this team is prioritizing and what this team is doing. So in order to do it, I decided to make a list of pros and cons. And after we go over those pros and cons, we should have a pretty good idea of whether or not this move was a good idea. So let's jump on over to the list I made, and we're going to start with a pro and then go to a con, then a pro, then a con, and see where we end up landing. And there's possibly some stuff that I don't even cover in this video that can be taken into account. But these were the things that jumped out to me as being a significant deal looking at this extension and trying to evaluate whether or not I think it's good or bad. Because as you guys could probably tell in my video this morning, I wasn't quite sure how to feel. I had many conflicting thoughts. And in stream today, I started to kind of hammer in on what I was thinking. But it's tough. So let's go ahead and start with pro number one. All right, pro number one. Extra 2021 cap space means another signing is likely coming. We don't know exactly how much money we saved by restructuring Lockett and extending him like this, but according to Brady Henderson on Twitter, it looks like his cap hit for 2021 has been cut in half, more or less. He says it was about 15 million, now it's going to be 7. I don't think the cap hit was for 15 million before. I think it was like 13.8, but either way, his new cap hit looks to be around 7 million. So the Seahawks basically saved $7 to $8 million against the cap this year by doing it. And what we can do with that cap space, well, I think the chief consideration right now should be Quinton Dunbar. I think that if I had to pick one player that the Seahawks are likely to get with this new cap space, it would be Dunbar. There's been some mutual interest there. He's tweeted some positive things about the team lately. So I think that we're going to make a cornerback upgrade to Quinton Dunbar, and we're going to use the money we saved on the Lockett extension to make it happen. All right. Con number one. Thin margins for Lockett to continue to be a top player. And what I mean by this is, and I think some people misinterpreted me when I said I think Tyler Lockett is slowing down. And I have a lot of people telling me he just had his best season. How is he slowing down? First of all, no, he did not have his best season. His best season was in 2019, and he was possibly better in 2018 than he was in 2020. Second of all, it's not just about production. And while Lockett did have a very productive season in 2020, I feel like watching him play, he's starting to struggle to get open. I saw him the last year and maybe the last 2 years make a lot of catches where he would just have a dude draped all over him. He would be well covered, and Wilson would just fit the ball into a thimble, and Lockett would make some insane, crazy, awesome, how the hell did he do that catch? And the thing is, while that's awesome, that slips away from you so fast. If you're a player who's beating your man by 2 steps every time he goes deep, and then he loses half a step, you're still, if you lose half a step when you're beating a dude by 2 steps, you're still beating him by a step and a half. If you're only beating him by like this much, you lose half a step, you're done. So Lockett can't even afford to lose half a step. And one stat that I would use to kind of indicate this is he's never been a great yard after the catch player. And in 2020, his yards after the catch were at an all-time low, 3.3 yards per reception. That's pretty bad as far as receivers in the NFL go. So, yeah, I'm just worried that if Lockett slips a little bit, he's going to become a much less useful player. His margins are razor thin. Pro number 2, commitment to Russell Wilson for 2021 for sure, and likely beyond that. Now, this is arguable. I think some people in my stream were trying to argue the opposite. But I do not think that you would consider committing yourself to your number 2 wide receiver long term like this unless you were 100% sure you were taking care of a quarterback. Why would you go spend a bunch of money on receivers when you're not sure if you're going to have a quarterback to throw them the ball? Because, look, as far as I'm concerned, the Wilson trade rumors should be completely dead, and talking about them right now is a complete waste of our time. But if you were still thinking maybe we could convince the Bears or the Raiders to give us a bunch of stuff for Wilson, then you have to ask yourself, who would our quarterback be in that scenario? Because neither of those teams has a high enough first-round pick for us to get one of the big 5 QBs in all likelihood, or at least not the big 4. And neither team has a great quarterback who could make the best use of these weapons that we would now be giving him. So this, to me, tells me that this team is basically completely done with the Wilson trade talk, and I think that's a positive thing for right now. So, pro number 2, Wilson is the guy for 2021 and probably years beyond that. All right, con number 2, questionable fit in the Shane Waldron offense. And this is subjective, and I've had a lot of people kind of get on me a little bit when I bring this one up, but I see 3 things when I look at Rams wide receivers over the last year especially, but the last few years. The number one thing I see when it comes to Rams wide receivers over the last couple years is size. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Josh Reynolds, and Van Jefferson were the receivers for the Rams last year. All of them are at least 6 feet tall and at least 195 pounds. Tyler Lockett is not even close to that height and not even close to that weight. Number 2, they are all excellent, or, well, at least the top guys are excellent yard after the catch players. We've already discussed how Lockett, his yards after the catch skill are some of the worst in the league among wide receivers. 3.3 would put him right near the bottom of the league in terms of yards after catch per catch. And vis-a-vis, if you take a look at Cooper Kupp, he was 5th in the league in yards after the catch last year, and Robert Woods was 9th. And in 2019, they were both in the top 11 as well. So the last 2 years, the Rams have had 2 wide receivers in the top 11 in yards after the catch. And then you have Tyler Lockett over there, who he rarely even tries to get yards after the catch anymore. He just catches balls and falls down, and I understand why he's doing that, and it's fine. But it doesn't seem to be what Shane Waldron is valuing when it comes to these wide receivers. And also, his receivers seem to be very good at blocking, and I don't know if that's Lockett's game at this point. So that would be con number 2. Pro number 3, imminent cap explosion in the NFL will make the deal look much better. Some people might be thinking that the reason why I'm hesitant to accept this deal is because of how much it's going to cost. Not true. I think that the cost could have some negative effect on this team next year, but I don't think it's going to be as extreme as it might look right now. The cap is going through a weird year in 2021, which is why you're seeing a lot of teams load up their bigger cap hits in later years. And if you take a look at this article from Yardbarker, and you can find similar sentiments echoed elsewhere on the internet, the NFL salary cap is expected to climb past $200 million in 2022. And if you scroll down a little bit here, you can see this paragraph. The Athletic's Lindsey Jones wrote there is a reasonable expectation that the 2022 NFL salary cap climbs to at least $200 million, with the possibility it is set even higher. Additionally, agents believe that the 2023 cap ceiling could skyrocket towards $230 million. So the cap is going to keep going up, and Lockett's deal, which looks huge right now, is not going to look huge in a year, and it's really not going to look huge in 2 years. So that's a positive. The big money is not going to be that big at the end of the day. Con number 3, we can now not get younger and cheaper at wide receiver 2. And this is just kind of something that I personally would have liked to have done. I don't know if this is an objective thing, but I think we all understand that on an NFL team, even a great NFL team, there are some positions where you're just going to have to go cheap on, and you're going to have to go get a young player who's on a small salary, and you're going to need them to perform. And I saw this offseason and this draft as a great opportunity to get a lot younger and cheaper at wide receiver too. Lockett on this deal is, and I know this is not going to be huge money in a couple years, but he's still going to be making 17 million against the cap as an average over the next couple years. Regardless of what else happens with Lockett, if we cut him after 3 years, it doesn't matter. He's still going to be making a lot of money. We had an opportunity to get a player who maybe wasn't as good as Lockett, but would have been a lot cheaper and a lot younger and in much better physical shape. And now that chance is lost to us, and I can't help but think to myself, this is starting to get a little unsustainable. At a certain point, you do have to say, okay, we need to commit to going cheap here, we need to commit to going young there, and we'll load up our expensive veteran superstars here, 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 and there. You know, guys like Wilson, Wagner for now, Adams, Metcalf. So I was kind of hoping we could go cheap and young at wide receiver too. That's now out the door. All right, so pro number 4, the combined money we are now spending on DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett forces a pass-first offense. So Lockett on this new deal, even though the cap hit won't be immediately huge, is going to be making about $17.3 million per year. And if you take a look at what DK Metcalf is going to be getting starting in a year or two, just take a look at the top receivers in the league, and you better believe that Metcalf is going to be looking for a deal similar to theirs. DeAndre Hopkins has set the record with a average annual value of $27.3 million a year. Julio Jones, $22 million a year. Keenan Allen, $20 million. Amari Cooper, $20 million. Michael Thomas, $19 million. He's going to be looking for at least that kind of money, probably in the upper ranges of that. I expect DK Metcalf to be getting about $25 million a year on his next contract whenever that comes up. So $25 million for DK plus $17 million for Lockett plus $35 million for Wilson equals you better be ready to pass the ball. That is almost 40% of your cap tied up in 3 players who you need to pass the ball to utilize. So whether or not Carroll likes it, we're going to have to pass the ball a lot, and he better be ready for it. So I view that as a positive personally because I think that's how you win in the modern NFL. But all this money we're loading into wide receiver is going to force us to be pass happy. All right, con number 4, sacrifice now necessary in 2022. Just because the cap is going up doesn't change the fact that this Lockett contract is probably going to force us to give up something of value next year. Because like I said, the cap hit went down this year, but now we have a big cap hit on the books in 2022 that we didn't have before. So if you take a look at our 2022 free agents, you can see, you know, Dwayne Brown, he's probably going to retire. Lockett's obviously now taken care of. He just hasn't been updated here yet. But you can see some impending free agents. And look, Jamal Adams, I have no doubt we're going to bring him back no matter what. I'm not worried about Jamal Adams whatsoever. But a guy like a Quandre Diggs, if he has a big season, might be out of our price range. He might go somewhere else. Gerald Everett, if he has a breakout season, probably not going to be able to keep him. He'll probably get paid somewhere else, and we're not going to be able to keep up. There are probably some guys that we're not even thinking about right now, but if they have big 2021 seasons, the opportunity to keep those players will be gone because of the money we gave to Lockett. Like, what if Shell has a great year? I know that sounds a little crazy, but what if he does? Ahkello Witherspoon has the attributes of a player I expect to do really well with Carroll, so what if he has a breakout year? Might not be able to keep him. And then if you go to the free agents in 2023, these are the guys who might get cut because of the Lockett contract. Wagner, I expect him to get cut anyway, and I'm totally fine with that, but there's Carlos Dunlap, there's Poona Ford, there's maybe 1 or 2 other players here that might end up on the chopping block to pay for Lockett. So there will be some degree of sacrifice next year. I just don't know how much. And finally, we get to pro number 5. It should be easy to release Lockett for minimal or no dead cap after 2023. as of right now, it's a 5-year extension, or a 4-year extension tacked on to a 1-year remaining deal. So Lockett's under contract for 5 years in Seattle, and I don't like that, because by the end of that contract, Lockett will probably not have any gas left in the tank. He's I think he's 28 right now, but he's playing like a much older player, I think. However, it is almost certain, and I'll say more when we get contract details whenever they're released, but it's very likely that Lockett's deal makes it so it's easy to cut him after 2023, which is what I would expect to happen. So very little dead money, very little skin off our nose after 3 years. This is not locked in, but when we get a look at this contract, it's very likely to be the case. So that's all I can see when discussing this Tyler Lockett stuff. So after really thinking about it, after really meditating on it, after talking about it in stream with a lot of people, I think that my final conclusion is that the pros probably outweigh the cons, and this is probably a good move. But there are a lot of cons. There are a lot of things that can trip us up and make this deal something we really regret. There are a lot of reasons why this contract extension could end up hurting us more than helping us down the line. But I think the good things outweigh the negative things. It's close, but I'm going to say this extension is good, but there's a lot of road hazards on the way that we need to dodge. So I'm going to get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. See you guys in stream later. That's my take on the Tyler Lockett extension after having a lot of time to think about it and process it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I've come around on it enough to say I think it's more good than bad. But I'm keeping an eye on the bad and hoping we get more of the good. See y'all later.